Jake sat in the back seat of Tyler's old Jeep, staring at the acceptance letter glowing faintly on his phone screen. The words blurred the longer he looked. Stanford Graduate Program Congratulations. His thumb hovered over the screen until, with a heavy sigh, he flicked it to airplane mode. Tonight wasn't about Stanford, or MIT, or medical school. Tonight was about the five of them one last hurrah before life pulled them in different directions. For 4 years, they had returned to Bishop Lake each spring, turning a tradition born out of poverty into something sacred. While other freshmen had fled to Cancun or Miami, the five broke students on the third dorm floor had scraped their change together and chosen to camp instead. And they'd come back every year since. Jake glanced at his friends. Tyler sat hunched in the driver's seat, his knuckles white on the wheel. He hadn't spoken much since MIT had rejected him last month. Chris sprawled in the passenger seat, already scrolling through memes on his phone. Ryan, riding next to Jake, cradled a beer in his lap, even though Tyler had banned drinking until camp was set. Marcus tapped at his phone every few minutes as though he expected reception out here, waiting for the med school emails that hadn't come yet. It felt fragile, like a glass bubble they were trying too hard not to shatter. The Jeep pulled into the last stop gas and market, squatting under the fading light like a weary dog. Its buzzing fluorescent bulbs cast strange, stuttering shadows across the cracked pavement. The place hadn't changed in 4 years, the same broken ice machine, the same faded beer posters peeling in the window, and, of course, the same clerk behind the counter. Good old Edgar, Chris muttered, grabbing a basket. Edgar looked exactly the same thin brown vest with stains of indeterminate age, thick round glasses that magnified his eyes into something insectoid. His Adam's apple bobbed with each swallow, making him look like a human praying mantis. Bishop Lake again? Edgar asked, voice catching in his throat. Last time, Tyler said flatly, dropping beer and beef jerky on the counter. Edgar's trembling hands rang up the items with agonizing slowness. Might want to reconsider. Jake paused mid-motion with a bag of chips. What do you mean? Edgar licked his lips. His huge eyes darted around the store before fixing on them. Lake's been hungry. Lost 3 deer last month. Found half dissolved on the shore. And little Amy Carson Sweet, kid used to buy popsicles here. Went missing last summer. Found her bike by the lake. Never found her. Marcus forced a laugh. Man, you tell that story to every college kid? Edgar's hands shook harder as he bagged their supplies. Only the ones I want to see come back. The words clung to Jake as they left, even as the others joked in the parking lot. The road wound beneath towering trees. Shadows pressed close against the Jeep's weak headlights. No one spoke. The usual road trip playlist buzzed from the speakers, but nobody laughed or sang along. When the deer carcass appeared in the undergrowth, half hidden and sagging like an emptied sack, Chris joked about mountain lions. Nobody laughed. Bishop Lake revealed itself suddenly. A vast black mirror cupped in a valley, rimmed with pines that leaned away as if recoiling. Mist curled across the water in tendrils, rising and falling like the slow breath of something sleeping. The air tasted metallic, faintly sweet, undercut by the damp rot of stone. Locals called it lake breath. Jake swallowed hard. Nostalgia and unease battled in his gut. They pitched tents in a loose semicircle. Every action felt rehearsed. Jake hammering stakes, Tyler methodically organizing gear, Ryan cracking open his second beer and retelling his band story, Marcus glancing at his phone despite no service, Chris swearing this was the last camping trip for the 4th year in a row. But something was off. The soil squelched beneath their boots, damp despite no rain. The air held no breeze. Yet the pine branches groaned. Tyler's laugh was too sharp. Ryan kept glancing at the lake. Jake felt it deep in his bones. Endings. While gathering wood, Ryan found an old corroded sign. Only fragments of words survived. By order of Bishop County Sheriff. Multiple incidents. Stay away from water after dark. They stared at it uneasily until Ryan pulled up an article before his signal vanished. Apparently, this was sacred ground to some native tribe. They called it hungry water. Marcus snorted. Scare tactic to keep kids from swimming. Tyler had gone still. My grandmother used to say some waters are hungry, he muttered. But Chris threw a beer can at him. And the moment passed. The campfire crackled. Sparks racing upward. Empty cans glittered on the ground. Laughter rose and fell in awkward bursts. You can't just say quantum and pretend it explains everything, Marcus argued. Watch me, Jake retorted. They laughed, but the sound felt hollow. Then Tyler stood. Lake's 5 minutes away. Let's swim. Sober up. You're nuts, Marcus said. What's wrong? Scared? Tyler's voice cracked. But he smiled. And so, 15 minutes later, they stumbled down the trail. Flashlights bobbing. The lake lay utterly still. The crickets had gone silent. The air pressed down like a held breath. Jake stepped in. The water was warm. Too warm. Thicker than water should be. Clinging like syrup. Something rippled out in the distance. At first, he thought it was the moon's reflection. But the moon was behind him. It rose higher. Pale flesh glistened under moonlight. Translucent skin stretched thin over throbbing veins. Beneath, organs shifted like trapped animals. Where a face should have been was only smooth skin and 2 sunken eyes. Then the mouth opened. A perfect circle of pulsing pink muscle, lined with thousands of finger-like projections tipped with tiny hooks. A tube unfurled like a grotesque flower. Mucus dripped, sizzling as it struck the water. Bioluminescent spots flared along its length, pulsing like a heartbeat. Its body rippled in waves, undulating as though liquid and solid at once. Jake's stomach lurched. Holy shit. One blink, and Chris was gone. No splash. No scream, just absence. Ryan screamed and turned. But the feeding tube lashed out. It wrapped his torso. And where it touched, flesh bubbled. His body folded inward, bones cracking like twigs. Tyler staggered to the shallows. The creature surged after him, mouth fastening to his face. Jake saw his friend dissolve, organs twisting inside the translucent belly. Marcus screamed. Frozen. Jake ran. The last sound he heard was the wet sucking of Tyler's final breath. They found Jake in his tent at dawn, curled and shaking. Rescue divers searched for days. They found only scraps of clothing. Tyler's waterlogged phone. No bodies. Jake told the story again and again, stripping out the impossible parts until even he almost believed it was just drunk swimming gone wrong. But in therapy, when the shrink suggested hallucinations, Jake snapped. Then go to Bishop Lake after dark. A university team studied the water. Their sensors recorded wild temperature swings, chemical changes that defied logic. 2 researchers vanished during a night dive. The rest refused to speak. Local historians unearthed journals from the Bishop family in the 1800s. They described cattle disappearing, the pond swelling larger each year. One entry read, "The pond ate Timothy today. Cole says it is our fault. We fed it too much. It is awake now." Scientists found sediment layers with tube-like fossils, but they weren't fossils. They showed bacterial decay consistent with living tissue, as if the organisms were merely dormant. Classified military reports from the 1960s revealed water samples exhibiting quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale. Cells in superposition alive and dead at once. Researchers reported shared nightmares of a vast transparent entity trying to push into our reality. The project was abandoned. Construction crews tried to develop the lake into a resort in 2024. Equipment failed. The lake rose overnight, swallowing foundations. Workers disappeared. The project was canceled under the guise of environmental concerns. Dr. Catherine Smith from the Geological Survey vanished after leaving a final recording. It isn't getting bigger. It's getting smarter. And it's almost awake. Her notes suggested the lake wasn't water at all, but the creature's diluted flesh, converting everything it touched. Years later, they found Jake dead in his apartment. Official cause, suicide. But his walls were plastered with satellite images of Bishop Lake, annotated with growth rates. His hard drive held water samples from across the country, each tested for the same anomalies. His journal's last entry. I found another one. In Montana, the water's starting to change. They're all connected. Now, the CDC quietly maintains a list of 17 lakes, each with disappearances, each growing, each alive. The signs by Bishop Lake have been torn down, poles twisted like melted art. Birds no longer fly overhead. Nothing grows near the shore. And sometimes, late at night, when the mist rises and the water gleams black, Edgar still works behind the counter of the Last Stop Market. When asked about the lake, he just adjusts his thick glasses and whispers, "It's not the lake that's hungry.